Cheese would be tough. All right, so within your notebook, we're going to start going over a new section of notes, which is going to be eloquence. It's going to take us today and tomorrow. The nice thing about eloquence compared to like logical fallacies, you're already familiar with a fair number of these. There are, I believe it's 19 terms that we're going to end up going over. Same terms that we did before. Terms, definition, example. So write down the examples as need be as it makes it more useful for you to be able to remember. On your weekly syllabus that we got at the beginning of the week, it had your eloquence quiz on Monday of next week. With us getting started a day later with this, which is fine, with the SPAR debates, that quiz is going to be on Tuesday. So today, tomorrow, we're going to go over notes with it. Monday, we're going to kind of do an activity review so that you can see how they get utilized. And then we'll do our eloquence quiz on Tuesday. The quiz on Tuesday, it's similar to the one that you did for the logical fallacies. It's matching. Of course, ninth period said, will it be definitions or examples? And I said yes. So take that however you will. But it'll be 10 terms, so it's 10 points. So all 19 that we go over are not going to be on there. There are a lot of A words that tend to show up. So I would say that would be something to look over just a minute. And we're getting ahead of ourselves, but just to make sure you can kind of differentiate among those. If you're a Quizlet person on the calendar online on today, there's a link to the Quizlet, and I can also send that out since I know some of you did sign up for that account. Fun having digital flashcards.
So turn-in class ID the same as last year?
No, because it would be like it's a totally different class. It's the same like looking handout, but it's not the
I
same.
remember like the first thing we did DTM because I joined the class yesterday.
Oh, like
Or
online,
2 days
online,
ago,
yeah.
I had to add.
Oh, they very well could be similar digits, but no, it's not the same one. I don't create that part. It just makes it for me. All right, up here, and certainly we're going to zoom in on some different things, but Martin Luther King Jr. is probably the most famous speaker where we would say really utilizes eloquence or maximizes the effect of eloquence. Eloquence is not going to take the place of content. I mean, the most important thing is for you to have content within the idea that you're trying to get across. But eloquence certainly can help you maximize that content. The thing that I think some folks sometimes struggle with a little bit is when it comes to speaking in front of people, remember, they only know or they only can remember whatever it is you tell them. It's not like a reading assignment where you can read over it a couple times, but it's a one-time shot to say things, convey things, communicate things to an audience, and they need to be able to remember it. And so that's where eloquence comes in, because it's a good way of getting people to remember certain points that you certainly want to emphasize. Speaking in front of people, I was looking at the New York Times yesterday, or maybe I think it was Tuesday. There was an article where it was American University, which is in Washington, D.C., pretty big school. They are doing a program to help people get more comfortable speaking in front of others, especially graduate level classes and things like that, where you have to present, do presentations, present ideas, theses, research, and stuff like that. They have found that one of the best ways to improve not necessarily the quality of the speech, but to feel more comfortable is to practice in front of dogs.
Yes.
And the whole idea is the dog is not going to roll its eyes at you, or when JT starts to get bored, go like this. The dog is going to move around. The dog is not sit there and just stare at you the whole time. But people feel more comfortable in front of dogs, and you feel less judged by the reaction that the dog is giving you. And sometimes you'll go pat the dog on its tail because it's cute and things like that. But it gets you a way to go through the speech and actually say the things the whole way through, and not feel judged by a sibling, friend, parent, or anything like that. So I don't know if it works with cats, but at home you could try cats, dogs, hamsters, stuffed animals. Those would all be options. But dogs is now something that they feel actually helps people speak. Grab a poodle. I don't know if I get a Doberman. I'm kind of afraid of just getting eaten. Whatever. All right, I already kind of mentioned this. What's going to help with eloquence? Again, it's not that it necessarily adds to the argument, although I guess in some ways it could kind of maybe trick people if they really like the way that you were speaking. But it's going to move people. You're going to get more of a reaction than you do through plain language. And you think about speeches that you're aware of. Generally, it tends to be some kind of form of eloquence that you remember. If you were to say, Martin Luther King's speeches, what's a line that people remember? I have a dream. And there's multiple reasons why people remember it. One of which is because in the speech he repeats it, uses it quite a bit. There's also the metaphorical, idea that goes behind it. If you were to ask someone, give me a line from a John F. Kennedy speech, the one that most people are going to come back to, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And it doesn't get repeated the same way I Have a Dream does, but there's that parallel structure to it, so it's a little bit kind of easier to remember. So it helps audiences to remember, and when you get into comparison, things like analogies, metaphors, it can also make it easier to understand. Now, at the same time, eloquence can sometimes feel forced, and it can be basic in nature at points where it sounds repetitive and redundant as opposed to the use of emphasis. When we get into your next speech assignment, which you're going to be giving like mid-October, you're going to be required to use so many types of eloquence within your speech. That's going to be your first lengthier speech. We're talking 6 minutes here. It's going to be divvied up. It's not going to be one big, bless you, 6-minute chunk of time. But you probably will already be using some natural elements of eloquence, so it's not going to feel as forced because we tend to use a lot of things already. They're going to get broken down, the types of eloquence, into 2 categories. We're going to do schemes, and then tomorrow is probably when we'll get to the tropes. I don't know if we'll get to start to them today. Schemes are involving the arrangement of the words, the sentence structure. So basically, you're looking at a type of syntax that would take place. The main form of schemes are going to be repetition. Now, there's not going to be a term that we're simply going to say, I'm just going to take it away as much as I can. It's not going to be, okay, repetition means to repeat, but we're going to have a variety of forms of repetition, most of which begin with the letter A, and then that's when folks get confused. If you took literary term quizzes for me last year, you'll be familiar with a lot of the terms. If you're taking literary term quizzes with me later in the year, maybe you'll remember some of these terms. If you haven't, doesn't matter, because you still know. Confident. You will know these. I bet you even know the first one. It begins with an A. Nope.
Alliteration.
There you go. And yet still, on the quiz that we're going to take on Tuesday, somebody, maybe you, is going to be the one to miss it. And I always go, how? It's alliteration. You learn it in, I don't know, 4th grade? You know alliteration? Do you know alliteration? Okay, good. So you won't miss it. You won't miss the question if it's on the quiz on Tuesday.
Seashells by the seashore.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the word for vowels this week?
Assonance. T.S. Eliot loves that. You don't like poetry now in AP Lit. Wait till you get to T.S. Eliot. Even I don't like T.S. Eliot. I mean, I like most poets. Can't stand that guy. So alliteration, repetition of initial or medium consonants in 2 or more adjacent words. So we have this example, step forward, Tin Man. Where's it coming from?
Oh,
Gotta be quick. Yeah, Wizard of Oz. Here, we can even listen to it. Hopefully.
You clanking, clattering collection of collisional junk.
I see Sheldon every time I look at the Tin Man. Seeing it? Yeah, it's there. Oop. So for alliteration, you have that repetition of the hard consonant sound. Generally, it's going to be at the beginning of the word. Now, by definition, it has to be 2 or more. I would say most often you're probably trying to get 3. Now, there could be examples where it's only going to be 2. But usually if people are trying to go with alliteration, it will be 3. The main thing is you want to make sure that if you're using alliteration, you're emphasizing key terms within your argument, within the idea. Someone going, I use the word how and have in the same sentence is probably not going to be an example of alliteration because they're not going to be key terms. Or I said the word the and then the word there later on. Most folks, again, won't consider that to be alliteration because they're not key terms that you are trying to emphasize. So alliteration certainly works if you have key terms, 2 or 3, you really want your audience to remember, and certainly you can go back to those terms multiple times. Dan, your pencil argument, I'm trying to remember what it was I think you used maybe tried and true or something when it came to the wooden pencil, but it was an example of alliteration to emphasize why the pencil was so effective. Or David's mechanical pencil argument. I still like mechanical pencils.
I still like
Okay. All right, a type of repetition that we would have. You'll hear 2 pronunciations for it, anaphora or anaphora. I usually say anaphora. I said anaphora yesterday to 9th period and people were freaking out because I say anaphora. Anaphora is going to be repetition of the same word or group of words at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences. So a form of repetition where at the beginning of the line you repeat same word or phrase. So in this example that we have, pretty clear, let us march to the realization of the American dream, let us march on segregated housing, let us march on segregated schools, let us march on poverty, let us march on ballot boxes. Segregated schools, ballot boxes would be examples of alliteration that would be effective because it's a key point that you're trying to repeat, to emphasize. But the let us march is going to be a form of repetition at the beginning. Theoretically, you could go that King here in 1965 is using repetition, but the specific term is going to be the anaphora or the anaphora, where it's going to be repetition at the beginning of the sentence. Could be as simple as one word, could be a phrase like this where it's more, 3, and could get a little bit lengthier with that as well. Generally, you will use anaphora at the beginning of the sentence when you're trying to emphasize an action that you want people to do. What do you want us to do? Let us march. Let us march. Let us march.
One very effective public speaking or presentation technique is called anaphora, which means simply the repetition of a key word or phrase at the beginning of successive sentences. It's a great way of emphasizing a point, and Barack Obama used it often during his inauguration speech in January 2009.
The God-given promise that all are equal, all are free, and all deserve a chance to pursue their full measure of happiness. For us, they packed up their few worldly possessions and traveled across oceans in search of a new life. For us, they toiled in sweatshops and settled the West, endured the lash of the whip, and plowed the hard earth. For us, they fought and died in places like Concord and Gettysburg, Normandy, and Quai Sanh. This is the price and the promise of citizenship. This is the source of our confidence, the knowledge that God calls on us to shape an uncertain destiny. This is the meaning of our liberty and our creed, why men and women and children of every race and every faith can join in celebration across this magnificent mall.
Don't know why there's a picture of a guy trying to pee on the toilet. Promise I wasn't watching YouTube videos for that. And that's always a screen that gets stuck, You can zoom through any other one, but that one you can't. So the anaphora, what he was using, you have something as simple as this, with the third example, for us, but you're repeating those kind of ideas. Now, we have anaphora where you got the repetition at the beginning. That means we're also going to have one where you have repetition at the end, and in this case, it's going to be epistrophe. Maybe a way to try, and people are going to come up, bless you, with different mnemonic devices to try to remember them. The difference between anaphora and epistrophe, I usually think of like epistrophe, the end, both beginning with E, anaphora at the beginning of the alphabet, at the beginning of the sentence. So that might be something that would work for you. But repetition, same word or group but this time at the end of the clauses. So we have this example coming from Malcolm X. As long as you were sent to Korea, Germany, and the South Pacific, you bled. As long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, you bled. Mentioned with anaphora, a lot of times you're trying to get people to do something, to take action, let us march. With epistrophe, a lot of times it ends up looking at what was the result, what happened, and you emphasize that at the end. David, do you remember your homework today? Mr. Kane? Hey. Yeah. All right. Okay, sounds good. Bye. So what happened in the past, you bled. Again, it can be as simple as one word. It could be a little bit of a lengthier phrase, but you tend to emphasize something that took place. So anaphora beginning, epistrophe the end. Gettysburg Address, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Simple example. Again, it can just be one word that would be getting repeated. Now we get in the words where, how do you say that? Antimetabolism.
That's an antithesis.
I just feel the need to like shoot you with water.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, I apologize if you get hit. Yesterday, Anton, someone asked me, like, have you ever squirted someone? Like, I think it was JT was asking, and I don't know if it was him that said it or someone else was like, I feel like Anton would have gotten drenched. I'm like, no.
I think only once, because I wrote like my Twitter username on your board, and then I just read
It's only because you were soaking Cody yesterday. 'Cause Cody was not good at
Cody was not listening.
it. He did that.
I applaud his efforts.
He
So,
said he dried off.
repetition of words in successive clauses, but it's going to be in reverse grammatical order. So a primary example of, I'll go back so you get definition. Primary example of this one, JT, what was the line you said? Ask not, but what you can do for your country. You're repeating the words, the clauses, but you're switching the order around for it. It could be something as simple as there's individuals like me that will eat to live, there will be those like me who live to eat, and others will eat to live. Or there are things like that when it comes to work. Do you live to work or do you work to live? So you're using the same phrase, but you're flipping the grammatical order of it just to try to emphasize a certain point. So with antimetaboly tonight, we're awakened to danger and called to defend freedom. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or justice to our enemies, justice will be done. This one sounds like a dinosaur. An anadiplosis. I don't know if it'd be like a pterodactyl looking thing. Anadiplosis. Hmm?
It reminds me of Annapolis.
Like the city Annapolis?
Yeah.
I'm on vacation.
Annapolis was destroyed by an anadiplosis.
Yeah.
Fire-breathing dinosaur. Anadiplosis, of course, repetition, because that's all that we pretty much have. Repetition of the last word in the clause, and then in the next clause, it's the beginning. So you end a sentence with the word, and then you begin the next sentence with that same word. For homework tonight, you're going to draw a picture of an anadiplosis, and we'll vote on which one we like the best. And then that's how you will remember this. Sound on this one is sometimes a little spotty. Might have to listen closely.
The became a slave. A slave who became a gladiator. Gladiator defied an emperor. Striking story. Now that people want to know how the story ends, only a famous death will do. And what could be more glorious than to challenge the emperor himself in the great arena? You would fight me. Why not? Do you think I'm afraid?
So for that one, or general who became a slave, slave who became gladiator, gladiator who defied an emperor. So a lot of times with anadiplosis, it doesn't have to be in a lengthy sequence. It could be as simple as just using it one time. But if you're trying to show the relation, like a chain reaction, snowball effect in a way, as like Chris was doing with his spar debate, anadiplosis can be a way to do that, where you have things that people might not necessarily associate, but you could end the sentence with one and then begin with that same word. You could have a word, an article, something like the word the or a in front of it, and it would still end up working at the beginning of the sentence for that to be the anadiplosis. Don't even say it, Chris.
I really want to say it.
Antithesis.
Hmm?
Is that right? Antithesis.
Antithesis, not antithesis. Mr. Kane, this is what my essay will not be about. The antithesis. Dun dun dun. But antithesis, juxtaposition of contrasting ideas that are going to be in parallel form. Where are we going to be for this one? Ethan, did it really happen?
Yeah,
Happened.
Is this a no comment?
Did you see there was a press conference the other day about traveling to Mars? We're going to be going to Mars in SpaceX buses. Like 20 years?
2024 is supposed to be the first launch of Mars. Then he wants to start actually doing it in 2030.
Like in around 2030 or so. So for $200,000, Dylan and I could go to Mars. Set the colony.
Isn't it still a one-way trip though?
Yeah, pretty much.
It takes a little while to get there.
No, like you go and you don't come back.
I would love to go.
I don't care.
But it's not.
I'm trying to die.
1969, we didn't have like stereo surround sound quite yet. So you had one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. So you have a little bit of, come on, stop that.
Are you okay?
I feel like The Walking Dead.
So far as contrasting ideas, it's one small step for man, but it is still one giant leap for mankind. So you wouldn't think of a little step for a human, but a giant leap that's going to be taking place for humanity. But because it's written also in parallel form, that's where that antithesis aspect is going to be coming from. So contrasting ideas that you wouldn't normally put together, written in parallel structure, is where that antithesis is going to be coming from. Another A word just for the sake of it. There you go, Chris. Assonance. I went with Edgar Allan Poe as opposed to T.S. Eliot. Repetition of similar vowel sounds in the stressed syllables of adjacent words. So it's not that they don't need to be beginning with the vowel, but you're getting that same vowel sound. That doesn't mean that it necessarily has to rhyme, although rhyming certainly does have assonance qualities to it. But the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain, certain, curtain, purple, has the same, sound going to it, which is where you'll get the assonance coming from. Probably the ones that we do tend to remember most frequently are also going to be rhyming words as well, though, which we'll have a couple examples of those coming up. Wait till you get to the love song of Alfred J. Prufrock. T.S. Eliot poem. The wasteland you will waste away.
Is it long?
Yeah, that one's fairly, yeah, that's a, I mean, it's not like, not Beowulf long, epic poem, but it's a lengthy poem. Post-World War I. T.S. Eliot's considered a great British author, or poet, born in St. Louis. Yeah, how does that work? Since we have, turn back the clock day, go back to the 90s and 80s, one of the more famous catch lines when it came to 1990s would be from the O.J. Simpson trial: if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And certainly with the O.J. mini TV series that we had earlier in the year coming back again, but it, fit, acquit, certainly they rhyme and also have the assonance quality to it. And then 1980s movies, Someone for Halloween will always be Maverick. Again, going to the bathroom. We might not be able to watch videos on YouTube anymore. Who in here do you think could pull off Maverick and Goose for Halloween? Who? Like both? He could like high five himself. I could see Dan. Climax is going to be arrangement of words, phrases, clauses in order of increasing importance to where you end up leading to a climactic phrase or your main idea. Anton, this song's all for you. I mean, I just think of Anton when I hear that.
Was this background on your book trailer?
No, I'm being totally facetious. I don't think of you when I think of this. No.
I'm just confused.
Oh, shit.
It's a long one.
It is. If you look closely, Chris is right. Where were you, Chris? I saw you. Right there. There was your climax. I saw JT's head moving the whole time.
Do you actually listen to that music?
I've used Smashing Pumpkins before. Cuckoo's Nest video was Smashing Pumpkins from last year.
Forgetting about the trailer.
Yeah,
But I missed that thing.
that was a good one.
That was around the time.
Cuckoo's Nest was Smashing Pumpkins.
That's what, yeah.
Was not this song. Was not that song. Now, that example that was on there, you could argue that there's anadiplosis going on because there was also linking. Emptiness is loneliness, loneliness is, and just keep going. It got to the last part, though, where it said, and God is empty, just like you, staring all at Chris, where now you're getting to the main aspect that you wanted. So there can be some crossover, similar to a square or rectangle, but is a rectangle going to be a square, kind of geometry aspect to it. So you could have some things where you could make an argument that it is multiple devices, but climax is going to be more of you're trying to get to a main point concept as opposed to anadiplosis might not necessarily have that going for it. Parallelism, parallel structure, would pretty much be synonymous with it. Similarity of structure in any pair or series of related words, phrases, or clauses. So within the Declaration of Independence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. You could make an argument that this one would also be anaphora. That can happen depending with the way that you're looking at it. Should have some examples coming up afterwards. It wouldn't necessarily have anaphora, but you can still see where that parallel structure would exist. Parallelism is good when you're trying to really show a balanced, equal distribution of whether it be abstract concepts, could be within like your claim of an argument where you're going to show what your subtopics are. That could be a time when parallelism would be taking place. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and success of liberty. So in this case, you would not have that anaphora taking place, but you still do have parallel structure where you have your verb, word any, and then the noun coming after. So pay any price, bear any burden, even though it's not an anaphora, it is still a parallel structure taking place. And of course, down here again, you can see where that alliteration will take place, survival and success of liberty, trying to emphasize those points. I should get a rocking chair in here. Forget the wheelie chair, just have a rocking chair. That's like an accident waiting to happen. I see David like hijacking that and just running down the hallway with it. So our first category were schemes. Second category are tropes. Tropes is more of what you would kind of consider to be figurative language, where you have a change from the ordinary and primary meaning of a word or phrase into something else. And that is when you get into simile, metaphor, personification. Allusions can also work their way into it, and we'll start going over those tomorrow. We'll do a break right here. But trope, different from scheme. Scheme is going to be syntax. You're looking at the structure of sentences, structure of words, the order, the arrangement of them. Trope, now you're kind of changing the meaning. So if you're making an analogies, comparisons, things like that, you would be doing more of a trope as opposed to a scheme. And as I said, we'll pick up with those tomorrow. So Tuesday is going to be when we'll take the quiz for it. So if you're not here tomorrow, the notes are still going to be available online. There's a link to the Prezi or also the audio recording. So if you want to check out Smashing Pumpkins live and content all day long, go over to the climax. But Tuesday is when we'll do the quiz. Monday we'll still do a review for these things before we jump into what that quiz is going to be about.